The following is rated not safe for work. It contains strong language, adult situations, and lots of spoilers. Discretion is advised.
In the criminal justice system, cinematic-based offenses are considered especially heinous. The dedicated attorneys who investigate these villainous films are members of an elite squad known as the Reels of Justice. These are their stories.
Order, please, order. The Reels of Justice is now in session. Judge... Oh, shoot, I changed it, sorry. Order, please, order. The Reels of Justice is now in session. Judge Baby Out and Half Tip Ryan Luis Rodriguez presiding. Your eyes for the Honorable Judge Rodriguez.
I love it.
Be seated. Welcome to the Reels of... Oh, shit, my microphone's falling down. Hold on.
Stupid Yeti mics.
This is a curse night.
It's the Shyamalan curse.
I hope
We're usually much more
further.
professional
I'm
than this,
getting
Andrea.
nervous.
It's the Shyamalan curse.
Probably me, my society's probably cursed.
No, I'm sorry. It's just...
Ryan's been cursed for many years on an unrelated topic.
Yeah, he once kissed a mummy or something. It's very confusing.
Anyway.
I liked it.
Be seated. Welcome to the Reels of Justice. Today we are hearing the case of The People vs. Lady in the Water, a 2006 fantasy thriller, citation needed, directed by M. Night Shyamalan. About a building superintendent who must help a mythological being get back safely to her home world. For those of you unfamiliar with our court proceedings, we are here to determine if this film is guilty of being a bad movie. As always in this courtroom, films are to be considered excellent until proven awful, and the burden of proof lies upon the prosecution to prove beyond a shadow of a reasonable doubt that this film is guilty. Mr. Dylan J. Schlender, you're representing the prosecution. You may present your opening statement.
Thank you, Your Honor. In a 2023 interview, M. Night Shyamalan said people on their deathbeds watch Lady in the Water. So now we know it's guilty of more than killing just my free time. This court has a justified, I think, soft spot for Shyamalan. Say what you will, he is trying things, and that is refreshing. However, the other part of trial and error is indeed the error. And while tokenly ambitious, Lady in the Water falls into that category. There are a few things to look at. Let's start with what we're taking in. This story is really forced and confusing. It is literally explained through the whole movie. We rarely see things happen. Everything is spelled out a couple times for us. I also want to talk about the implausibility of all the folks just going along with everything. Where's the resistance? Where's the tension? And finally, I need to take a shot at M. Night himself. This onastic display would make Mel Gibson blush, and it is indeed very jarring to what could have been a sweet and fun movie. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schlender. Appearing on behalf of the defense is Ms. Andrea Palladino. Please present your opening statement.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, today I will show that Lady in the Water is a decent, solid movie with a good performance from Paul Giamatti especially, an entertaining cast of characters, and some excellent themes. The cinematography is also decent and occasionally has quite interesting visual moments. And at its heart, this is not a film that relies on a twist. Unlike other M. Night Shyamalan films, this is a movie that wears its heart on its sleeve. And that is what makes it a good movie.
Thank you, Ms. Palladino. Mr. Schlender, you may proceed with your first exhibit.
My goodness, can we reducto add Shyamalan in a Shyamalan episode? Your Honor?
Yes, we can.
How can we not?
They're right, you know. My first exhibit has to be just how out there this story is. The paper-thin mythology has to be explained over and over again. We have a narration at the beginning. We have the choice going on and on, translating the story from the mother. We even have our Narf Bryce Dallas Howard explaining things as our characters guess while she's in the shower. There's so much telling and telling. And that's unusual for a Shyamalan movie where he is normally keen to lean on visual cues and hints. Say what you will about Shyamalan. He knows how to point the camera, and we don't really get a lot of that in this movie. Because we don't get to see things progress and we are just told what is happening. And another example of this is even when Paul Giamatti confronts the scruff, the tension is ruined because they're literally on walkie-talkies telling us everything we're already seeing. Again, explaining everything. And they have to explain everything because new powers and new mythology is made up on the fly. Oh, well, there's a guardian. Oh, wait, no, there's a healer. It's usually a woman, but sometimes it's a man. This little boy reads cereal boxes. And I read the cereal boxes wrong. Wow, you only have one magic power, kid. Come on. Now, granted, this story was adapted from a bedtime story M. Night told his kids. But you would think the point of making it into a movie would be able to show and tell. I suspect we would have been better served in our beds with M. Night's dulcet tones drifting us off into a fine slumber.
That is how I watch the movie.
Oh, nice.
Ms. Palladino, is this overly expository?
I was actually going to argue that the fact that this is kind of a tribute to bedtime stories is a huge plus in its favor. And the fact that we get to hear what the story is in advance is kind of refreshing. Instead of the audience always trying to find the twist, we can enjoy knowing what's going to happen and just watch it unfold. And we get a lot of dramatic irony knowing things that the characters don't know, which is unusual and a different kind of pleasure.
You know, it's an interesting idea if he's explaining so much to overcorrect for people expecting the twist, which I think hurts this movie and is part of the ego trip he was on, which is going to be a point I'm going to bring up later, Your Honor. But my second point...
That's the pot calling the kettle black.
Well, hey, what can I say? I'm not on trial yet. So,
Next one to no one.
In relation to my first point, that the movie is just telling us so much, one of the issues is we're crowded out with so much exposition. We don't get to see much character development, so every character that's introduced just has to go along with everything that's happening, which frankly is really just nuts. I mean, you really don't have a single character going, she doesn't live in the pool. Like, you're keeping this, like, damaged girl naked in your little cottage, Paul Giamatti. We should call the police. I mean, that's what any normal person would do. They didn't know he was a doctor. So that makes the glide path for this movie just way too simple. Every problem has a solution. And we already know that the monkey demons are going to come and kill the scruff because, get this, they're so evil that they follow all the rules and are going to save the day.
They murdered your parents!
Look, I want to embrace this idea of community that we are seeing in this film. I think it could be a good message. Again, I really don't hate M. Night. It's just how much of a fumble this is because this idea of community is handled so uncritically. We really just kind of see it as being silly. Like this Mr. Leeds guy. He says he wanted to believe more than most, like a kid again. Why? That is so unearned. The man just sees bad news on TV. Well, here's a news flash. We all do. What? Come on. Look, I suppose I should be thankful that we did not get even more dialogue about why the folks bought into this craziness. So maybe that actually worked. It's like, you know what? Just make them go along with it. The movie's running long because we've explained the mythology 3 different times.
Speaking of running long.
That's my middle name.
Ms. Palladino, any rebuttals to this?
Only that if you believe and buy into the fact that this is a bedtime story that he's telling, like, we can be more aspirational and we don't have to look for people be backstabbing each other all the time. In fact, the critic in the movie is the one who's really wrong about everything, and he gets eaten by the scruff. So you could say that kind of attitude is what M. Night's kind of going against in this movie, and kind of urging the viewers to embrace the kind of magical moment of the story and believing that in a good, better world, an apartment complex could come together to save a sea nymph.
Pool nymph.
A narf, please. All right. I mean, he must have been watching Pinky and the Brain.
Correct.
With his children. All right. Okay. The moment everyone's been waiting for. The time has come. I just need to take M. Night down. But I do want to set the table here because a little history is important.
All right, go for it.
M. Night Shyamalan is not just an ordinary director. He's much bigger than that, like a Spielberg or a Hitchcock. At the time of the making of this movie, I want to make clear, he was as known a quantity as his films himself. Now, 2006 was just a smidge over his peak, The Village hurting him a bit, but he was still riding high from Signs and The Sixth Sense. And frankly, riding high on his own supply. To cash in on his popularity, he decided to make himself the martyred savior of a world that was destined for, we never made exactly clear. And frankly, this is distasteful in the extreme. Because you see, M. Night thinks this is so self-evident that he's writing this book, M. Night Shyamalan, we never get to hear any of the ideas from the cookbook. We never understand why he's killed. The reasoning actually seems pretty circular because he's asking the narf, will the cookbook get me killed? They're like, yes. And because you get killed, it makes the cookbook popular. It's like, what? That's not how this works. So M. Night wants us just to accept, because he's M. Night, this will all happen, that he has the gravitas to make this believable. Now, I think this was very divorced from the actual character that he forgot to play, who was, if anyone can even remember his name, which you can't, you just see him as M. Night Shyamalan, it was Vic Rand. So let's look at some monumental political monographs that have shaped events and ideologies. You have the Communist Manifesto, 2 treatises on government, Witness, Reflections of the French Revolution. Trust me, I could go on and on. My point is, none of these books were written ex nihilo as the cookbook is purported to be. The cookbook would work if it was Vic Rand's manifesto and he committed some crime a la the Unabomber, but there's no need to get too far gone. My point is, we can't understand the stakes because M. Night does not understand them. He thinks since he is portraying this character, and again, we're being told all these things, that we will just buy it. Well, we do not, sir. Not even a little bit.
Ms. Palladino, is this an ill-advised vanity project?
No, but I wasn't focused as much when I viewed it on the writer. It was more the journey to get the narf safely back home that brought people together, because by the time the whole community got involved, he'd already seen her. The book was going to be written. So that's not really the main driver throughout the second half of the film.
Okay. Mr. Schlender, do you have any further exhibits?
Well, I just want to bring up a little more about M. Night's ego, because it actually goes a little bit beyond just what we see on the screen here. We also have to look at the villain, in a way, was Bob Bablin's movie critic.
Balaban.
That's not it. What's that?
Balaban.
Balaban?
Balaban.
Balaban lobs law bomb.
Am I going to have to regulate Balaban? Okay, that's a...
Bob Balaban's law
That's
bomb.
a throw draw. So, and one of the reasons is that M. Night really, really wanted to make this movie. He ended up leaving Disney/Touchstone to actually get this movie made because his ego was so wounded that the woman who normally reads the scripts for Disney passed on reading this. And that was enough for him to up and leave. So we have this weird tension on the screen because we're just watching Shyamalan's ego the whole time. And it's incredibly suffocating. And I really feel that's ultimately what gets this movie to bad is M. Night's inability to separate the art from the artist, but he's the artist and he can't separate from his own art. It's very bizarre, very jarring, and ultimately unsatisfying. And I'll rest there, Your Honor.
Okay, before we turn it over to Ms. Palladino, if you have anything you'd like to say about the last argumentation, you may go ahead.
I think you could perfectly enjoy this film without knowing anything about M. Night Shyamalan as a director/writer.
Okay. Food for thought for the
about
jury.
It's
Ms.
a
Palladino,
statement.
you may proceed with your first exhibit.
My first exhibit is from the very get-go. Paul Giamatti in this role is amazing. He's playing a character very against type. He's sweet. He's soft-spoken. He's got a really incredible stutter. Not like a cute stutter, like a disturbing stutter. Every time he does it, you think he's gonna like collapse because he can't breathe or something.
It turns out he can hold his breath for a surprisingly long time.
He's slightly awkward. Just everything about his character is so great. And then at the end, he has just an amazing scene where it's kind of been hinted throughout the film that, you know, he has this dark kind of backstory that the local neighbors don't know about having been a doctor, but his family was murdered when he was away from home. And he just like has this emotional kind of gush while he's kind of lamenting the fact that the Narf got injured and he wasn't there, and it all kind of bleeds into I wasn't there when my family was murdered, and it's just incredible performance by him. So that is my first point.
I would
Mr.
like
Schlender, say something bad about Paul Giamatti, American Treasure. I challenge you guys.
I certainly will. This is the same Paul Giamatti from Sideways and Rhino, the Amazing Spider-Man. Look, Paul Giamatti, the best way to describe him is hard to watch. He has to be one of the least convincing actors of all time. And I mean, look, I like the John Adams miniseries, but give me a break here. Being a stuttering ex-doctor. Now, one of the reasons this character ultimately doesn't really work is because even though we talked about M. Night trying not to do the twist, we can't help but see it. He knows he's looking for a writer, and we find out that he has written these wonderful journals. So you go, ooh, a clue. Maybe he's the writer that he's actually going to end up being inspired at the end anyway. And it turns out to be a red herring. I was reading this excellent essay about how to critically view M. Night Shyamalan movies, and they're talking about all the writers in this movie. And basically, when you think about it, they all just kind of end up being red herrings. All of their writing, and this would include the old lady who's written a book, was it about birds, they said, or gardening? I don't remember, but she said it was out of print for so long, the critic who hasn't written anything in so long, and now him who's writing his journals. So we have all of these writers that are ultimately just red herrings, and Paul Giamatti is just, king red herring in this movie, unfortunately.
Ms. Palladino, any rebuttal to this?
I mean, I do admit that there are some leads that don't pan out, but in any kind of mysterious story, to make it fun, you have to have some uncertainty. Otherwise, there's no mystery.
Okay. Would you like to proceed with your next exhibit?
My second exhibit is that there's a really great cast of characters, and contrary to what you might expect, they take quite a bit of time in the opening to kind of get to meet everybody, which really pays off because you get to kind of see who are all these neighbors, what are they about, what makes them different and unique. Sometimes people are silly or weird or really young or kind of out of touch or cranky or just snarky and rude like the critic. But everyone's very unique, which was a really great, I thought, variety of cast members, which pays off in the end when all of the community has to come together to save the Narf.
I will stipulate I do like the guy who's only working out one half of his body. Like that's just
Why
so.
am I not surprised that Dylan would be into that character?
That was a brilliant character.
It's so bizarre. It's like, what is this movie? And like, that's exactly the kind of thing you make up where you're talking to your kid. It's like, yeah, and he had huge muscles, but only on one half his body. Why, Dad? He is an experiment, you know. My only issue with the characters, it really goes back to the point that I've really been trying to hammer home, is that so much of this stuff is really just explained and told. He's basically getting into a room with this. Admittedly, it's a diverse cast. It could be a very interesting slate of characters, but all they're doing is just talking, you know, and everything's just being explained and hashed out for us. I guess that's one of the reasons I like the half-strong man, because we actually get a great visual with that. We actually get to see what makes him unique, what makes him different, instead of everything just being explained. But even then, he can't help but explain, oh, I'm an experiment. It's like, well, it's painfully obvious you're only working out one half of your body. You don't have to say it. And really, so I appreciate where you want to go with this cast argument, but ultimately, it's like people sitting around doing a table read. They're just talking.
Ms. Palladino, if you have any rebuttals to that, or you can move on to your next point if you like.
Well, my rebuttal will kind of move into my next argument.
Okay, please do.
Perfect.
So, my third final argument is this film has some really solid, positive themes. For example, the community and trust went out over going it alone, and the variety of characters really kind of contributes to this, because this is not a homogenous bunch. They're very unique and different in different languages and ages, and yet they're all able to come together and trust each other in order to be able to get the Narv home, which is just a very empowering and positive and aspirational message, which I think is one of the strongest parts of the piece. Hope and faith and good in the world leads people to want to help. One of the characters, who maybe doesn't get to say much, does say that he wanted to be part of this because he really had some hope that he could do good, which is a huge, I think, reason why the people in the apartment complex do come together. Because despite being different and maybe not on the surface seeming to have something that would unite them, the hope that they can do good, they trust Giamatti. That's huge. He's done a great job getting to know everyone in the complex. He apologizes when he's late. He listens to their little complaints. He knows the woman whose mother told the story way before. It's just a lovely symbiosis that brings it all together at the end. And no one's unimportant, no matter how young or weird or silly they may seem. You meet the guy who's only working out half of his body, you think that's weird. And at the end, he's the Guardian who saves Paul Giamatti and the Narf. It's amazing. So
It's still weird, though.
It's still weird, but it's like really well woven in. He's not just an outlier. He actually plays a really essential role in the story. So, and then all wrapped up in the benefits of listening to our elders and bedtime stories, which I think is also a great message. And it has a happy ending, which is very positive and lovely too. Despite some of the scarier moments with the scurf, the Narf is saved in the end. So I think has some lovely messages all throughout. And we'll also want to point out that kindness winning over snark and arrogance, the critic who is so arrogant, and the characters actually call it out, like who would be so arrogant to think they could know without meeting people who is the person? He is literally eaten by the scarf. So
He didn't deserve to die. Come on, that was too much.
in his final moments, he still thinks he's got it all figured out. I think that's very telling.
I just wish they really made him look like Ebert, and I would have been happier with that scene, I think.
You mean like they did in Godzilla?
Yes.
The Matthew Broderick Godzilla?
Yes.
Oh,
There's Mayor Ebert and his assistant Gene.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Well, stay tuned for next week, folks.
Great movie.
So to kind of respond to the community angle, I mean, I do think that is one of the messages that M. Night wants us to take away from it, with him being, of course, on top of the community. We're all getting together to support M. Night's vision. He's the man we should be listening to both in and out of the movie, which I find a little distasteful. And another point that I kind of want to bring up too, that I was thinking of while you were talking about every character's role. They say randomly, basically, that the healer, is like foretold by butterflies, and we only ever see the one butterfly, and it only lands on the old lady. It's like, what a missed opportunity, especially for a director with the eye of Shyamalan, to not have like subtle butterflies throughout the movie, like not to have a subtle butterfly around Paul Giamatti, not to have him have like a butterfly coffee mug or something, like a tremendously missed opportunity that could have really clued us in. Now, maybe saying that he was a former doctor was really supposed to hit us over the head with it, but there's something about the lack of subtlety in this movie, because again, everything is explained to us. I really think that's just another good example of this movie falling short. And again, just everyone just uncritically going along with it. If you're going to talk so much, let's at least hear how he convinces these people, so that would just be my only point on the community, Your Honor.
Okay. Ms. Palladino, do you have any response to that, or should we move to closing arguments?
Oh, we can move to closing arguments.
Okay. All sides arrested the cases. The attorneys will now present their closing arguments. Mr. Schlender, you may begin.
Thank you, Your Honor. Look, people of the jury, we like M. Night Shyamalan in this courtroom. I think we do. But I think one of the reasons we do is because he is, at the end of the day, a very honest filmmaker, even if he's not making a good film, or in this case, he's made a bad film. However, he always puts his own twist on it. You always feel like you're watching an M. Night Shyamalan movie, and that means something. But, you always know when you're watching a J. Lee Thompson movie as well, and they're not all going to be found not guilty in this courtroom. One day, we'll figure it out. So when it comes to Lady in the Water, let's take a look at the critical elements. We had M. Night Shyamalan leaning on his weakest talent, which is writing, trying to make it look like a real strength by making his character a writer who literally saves the world. There's a complete lack of visual cues that we usually get from a Shyamalan movie. I understand the idea of wanting to keep it all contained in the apartment complex, but yet there were still interesting things that could have been done, like the butterflies, that he chose not to do. So, as you go in to that jury room, and you all try to decipher what your magical power is, or what the verdict is by looking at the bailiff's box of Captain Crunch, you'll see those words, guilty. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Palladino, please present your closing argument.
Lady in the Water should be judged not on the basis of M. Night Shyamalan, but on the basis of the film itself. In the terms that it has defined itself, in the names of the character, in the words of the characters, as a bedtime story. And in this regard, it succeeds on all fronts. It has an interesting cast with good performances. It has a very interesting otherworldly element and keeps the audience guessing a little bit, but they can still enjoy where the story's going, because they have a sense of what's happened before through the narration and the animation at the beginning. And really leaves us feeling amazingly good and positive about the possibility of community and kindness winning, where people help each other and no one is too unimportant, young, or silly, or weird to contribute to a better tomorrow. So for all these reasons, the movie is not guilty of being a bad movie.
Thank you both. Members of the jury, Mr. Maynard Bangs, Mr. Big Ben Haslar, and Mr. all beings have a purpose. Ryan Luis Rodriguez, you've all heard the facts concerning this case. It is now up to you to determine if this film is guilty of being a bad movie. The bailiff will escort you to the deliberation room to render your verdict.
Right this way. Twist ending to this trial was the scaretaker was me in a mask all along.
Wow, pretty good twist.
I love it.
Wow,
Didn't see it
what a
coming.
twist. What a twist.
That was me.
That was you? That was good.
Ben, do you have an interview that you want to do?
I'll think of something.
Okay.
Be a stuttering Paul Giamatti. It will really play.
No, that's insensitive. I won't do that.
Mary would do it.
Well, I'm just saying, if you doing the impression stuttering is insensitive, is the movie insensitive? I got first place to start the conversation off. Right to you, Big Ben. What do you think?
Actually, I don't hate M. Night Shyamalan, but I do think that this is this is his ego. I mean, you can't escape that. And the question that I didn't expect to be sort of ringing in my head throughout this trial is how I would have viewed it if M. Night Shyamalan didn't direct it. If it were like exactly the same, but it wasn't him, it was just some other character. That's an interesting question because he's all over this film for me. Like his ego is ever present in my association with this film. I will say though that Paul Giamatti though he's great. I don't know what Schlender's talking about. He is a great actor. I don't like the stutter. I do feel that the stutter is a little. It's not the character trait I would have gone for.
The stutter is his entire all the time. He stutters the whole time. I can't see how you could like his performance but not like the stutter.
I would have picked like a different tick for him. I don't know like what the point of the stutter was in this particular movie.
I think something that can go away when he's near story,
right?
Which a lot of things could have. But to me, if you didn't like the stutter, I don't think you liked the performance because he stuttered. No.
I mean, I buy him the rest of the time. I buy his journey. I buy him caring for her story and all the other characters. He is a very genuine actor. It's not that I don't buy the stutter like when he's doing it. I just wish it were some other tick.
Let's hear from Ryan Luis Rodriguez on the ideas of ego or stuttering.
Oh, I don't have any ideas on stuttering, but ego, yeah, that's what this is. This is an ego trip.
Is it just because he's cast himself as the actor?
I think actually, yes. I think that's a big issue with it. I think that if he had cast somebody who was not him and was nothing like him, I don't think that people would have come out en masse to criticize him for it. I think it's the fact that he's basically saying, I am a god. I am a god and you are men. That's
you still know that he wrote
doing.
It though, right? You'd still know that he wrote it, and you'd still know that like the critic character like gets taken down, and M. Night Shyamalan has famously hated critics.
Terrible. I am thin-skinned, but I would never take it out on critics like M. Night does here. The scene where Bob Balaban dies is one of the worst scenes I've ever seen in my entire life. It is abysmally bad.
I agree. Killing the critic is stupid. There's, to me, a bit of the ego. And for him to talk about the subtext of Rain and then, like Schlenzo said, not do anything like with butterflies. Like, don't talk about subtext and shit and then do none of that in this movie. But to me, otherwise, I don't see his acting as an ego trip here. Because one, he has been in every single one of his movies up to this point and his roles have been getting bigger and bigger. And I think at some point he was just they
were cameos.
Yes,
but I think he enjoyed it. As an issue, though. I don't think that his performance is bad. It's just the fact that he cast himself. That's the worst part of it.
See, I don't think what's amazing is he is one of the better performances in here. I don't understand why he always directs someone so badly. I mean, he gets bad performances out of some of the to me, this is a bad performance he got out of Giamatti. He gets a bad one out of Joaquin Phoenix a couple of times. Who's the other motherfucker he fucked up too? I can't think of him right now. No, Bruce Willis ignored him. No, Mel Gibson ignored him too, and that's why they did fine, because they didn't listen to him. Oh, Mark Wahlberg, but he does lots of bad performances. But it was a particularly bad Wahlberg happening, unfortunately, like extra bad. It was a double Wahlberger there. Anyway, but I don't think he's bad here. I think he actually enjoyed acting and wanted to do more. That's it. That's all I see it as. Maybe the killing the critic I see as ego, the making himself the writer that changes the world, a bit of ego and naivete, but casting himself in what is it's a supporting role. when many filmmakers put themselves in the lead all the time and still direct. I don't think it's that bad. But let's talk about something else, Ryan. Ryan, what else do you want to talk about besides ego?
Well, in the plus column, this movie is so beautiful to look at. I mean, my God, Christopher Doyle, who does all the Wong Kar-wai movies, I don't think he could shoot a bad bit of cinematography if he tried. And M. Night's movies are always very visually lush and visually complex, and that definitely carries over into this film. But unfortunately,
we didn't hear much about it, right?
Yeah, we didn't. That's the issue.
Yeah, it's like the Shyamalan's strength is his technical directing.
Yes.
With and pulling together great scores and great cinematography and great lighting, and just they always look good no matter how fucking stupid they are. You know, so but we didn't hear that. Not much. I don't remember it.
Nope, it didn't come up.
And we did hear a lot about the extras. Do you like the only guy I like is the guy who works out half, and honestly, he's barely in this. He gets to come in.
I was so confused by him. I still am confused by him. I don't understand why he wrote this guy.
It's just funny, I guess. But
can you imagine this guy on a date? Like how would you have this guy sit across from you? Like, how would you interact with him?
Here's what ticks me off, though. We didn't hear from the prosecution. I can't consider it. Him working out half his body has nothing to do with being the guardian. He stares at you. It had nothing to do with him holding that pool skewer. Like, he could have not worked out the other half of his body. It's not like Signs where his quirk was significant to his power. Like the kid with the cereal box. He just works out half his body, and that has nothing to do with anything.
Well, every character has to have a bizarre idiosyncrasy, so there you go.
A lot of the others are kind of dull. Do I want to touch on anything? I agree with Schlenzo. Way too much tell versus show. That's stupid, especially having the prelude animated thing in the beginning, which Andrea did mention. All it does is introduce the idea of narfs. What they should have done is dropped a whole bunch of the rules in there, like the Beauty and the Beast intro does. Not only does it tell you why he became a beast, it tells you how he can break out of it. If that little intro had talked about this group of people, a healer, a guardian, a little earlier, so we knew what was coming on and we didn't have to do so much exposition dump, that would have helped.
That animation was cool, too. It's like, I would have paid attention.
Yeah, do the Black Panther intro.
Pluses on the defense. I do agree with the theme of no one being unimportant. That's a good theme. But I also think it's one he kind of did already in Signs. So
yeah, he can do it again, though. I mean, like, self-contained within this film, it works. And like, the fact that they're a varied and interesting group, I think, contributes to that theme better than Signs did.
Sounds good. Why don't you lock in first, then, Big Ben?
Going based on the case, I think Schlender hit most of my points. There's too much narration. The ego is just too much. I have no problem going guilty. It's kind of a meh film for me. It's very forgettable. I saw this once before. I'll forget it after this trial is over. But yeah, the ego is just very troubling. I can't get past it. I can't stop thinking of this as an M. Night Shyamalan film, no matter how I try to get away from that thought.
Ryan?
This movie's not good. It's a gentleman's 4. But it's deeply interesting. However, like Ben, I don't think I'll be thinking about it very much once we're done talking about it here. I gotta say, but just by stacking, because I'm willing to go for whatever side I think had the best points, and I just stacking both sides side by side. A lot of sides there. I gotta go with Dylan. He brought the rain, bringing the thunder. Guilty.
Well, you could take the lady out of the water, but you can't take the water out of the lady because she'll die.
Oh, no.
So it doesn't matter what I have to say. This is a movie I have struggled to like for years. I was really into Shyamalan in like high school and stuff. And like Village shook everybody, but like this one I just could never like. I even like some things about The Happening. I never liked anything about this. My favorite things about this are the visuals and the sound, which we didn't really hear, and the general creature design, which I also didn't really hear.
Oh yeah, they were CGI and terrible. Ugh.
No, but I like their design, not their execution. But I like the bush dog that gets flat. I think about that a lot. I think about the tree apes. Like they're really cool. That's how they should have looked like in Congo and stuff. Like at least better. Yeah, but I agree with you. Like they're so evil, they punish the wicked. Like what? Didn't make a lot of sense, but again, it was a bedtime story. But yeah, I've struggled to like this for years, and I just can't bring myself to do it. And I think Schlenzo really covered why. So, I'm also going to go guilty. So let's get out there and tell that very handsome judge.
Mr. Foreman, have you reached a verdict?
We have, Your Honor. In the case of The People versus Lady in the Water, we find the defendant guilty of being a bad movie.
Poor M. Night.
The verdict is so rendered. Lady in the Water is hereby remanded to a farm upstate where these scrunts and nymphs can frolic peacefully, far from the contact with the outside world. Court is adjourned.
Well, at least that's nice.
No, they're dead, Ben. They're dead. There's no farm.
What? This is Ben Shyamalan, gifted oracle of truth and inspiration to the cosmos. Mr. Schlender, you won this case. What did you think of the verdict?
This is my curse in Reels of Justice. I have to prosecute
Shyamalan curse.
The Shyamalan curse. I have to prosecute movies that I do sincerely like and enjoy. And this was a movie that we always had on the list that I thought always deserved a good defense. And I do think Andrea gave it a good defense. I agreed with all of her points. I actually really like this movie, and I had to do my job. And, of course, it gets a unanimous guilty. But, so, look, I'm going to defend Old one day. I want to defend Shyamalan.
I'll defend Old.
I think he's got a voice. I think he has a vision. I think the ego is too much in this movie, and if that's why you don't like it, I can respect that. And so thank you all for your time today, and again, thank you for Andrea for providing a great defense for this movie that I actually really do like.
That's interesting, but I'm sure I could have written it better, as I am the very mouth of God. Miss Palladino, what did you think of the verdict?
It was an uphill battle. Obviously nothing I could do about the fact that M. Night had written it, was in it. I haven't watched much of his stuff. I didn't know that was him. So I had no idea. I was like, oh, he seems nice enough, the acting's decent. Like, he actually seems perturbed, but not like freaking out and running the other way. Like, he's kind of accepted death, which, another good message. But anyhow, but it never really struck me about the visuals. I wrote in my notes, some good shots. Like, there's a last shot of Giamatti from under the water at an off angle, which was nice. And then some of the foreshadowing I liked with the sprinklers, like you're looking out in the grass, like, where is it? Where's the dog? But I hadn't picked up on the cinematography as much. If I'd known, I would have prepared some more on that. So, yeah.
Well, I'm off to write another truly groundbreaking piece of art that will reshape the world as we know it, and as I do that, why don't we return to the studio for post-trial analysis?
Ben Shyamalan. It was right there.
Reducto ad Benelon. I don't know.
You love to see it.
But yeah, it was a good case, Andrea. I'm glad that you like Giamatti. I don't think I do, and it's weird that M. Night likes to act naturalistically, but he doesn't let his leads do the same.
No, I loved Paul Giamatti in this, because actually I do hate him in pretty much everything but this, to be honest with you. I am not a big Paul Giamatti fan.
He's not a likable character, and almost everything he does, even Sideways, he's kind of a dick.
Yeah.
His magnum opus is Big Fat Liar.
It was refreshing to see him in a different role.
Don't tell me that's not his greatest work.
Oh,
Big Fat Liar. Don't try to bring that.
Malcolm in the middle there. What's his name? Freddie Muniz, right? Frankie Muniz.
Frankie.
Yeah, it's Freddie Mercury. Yeah, Frankie.
They're no relation, those two people
that we're aware of.
But so, Andrea, what's been keeping you busy lately? What have you been up to?
Well, our podcast. Am I allowed to talk about that now?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. You ain't not plug other. Yes.
My podcast, not my group podcast, Cinemania Society. We just released a new episode today. It's been challenging because we're trying to avoid movies on the struck work list. So we usually review films that cause Cinemania. But our most recent episode was actually a book club instead about the Necronomicon.
Ooh.
So I encourage people to check it out. But
so cinephiles becoming bookophiles.
Yes, the Libromania Legion.
Bibliophiles. Okay, but then when they read the Necronomicon, they're necrophiles, right?
It was right there.
Walked right into that one.
Wow.
Yes, I know.
But we're encouraged that it looks like the strike might be winding down. So please do check us out. This season we are on the run from the cinema assassins. So our theme is movies that take place in different places.
Well, I like your dedication to portmanteaus. We really appreciate that here.
Yeah, that's pretty great.
You know, how come the reels don't have assassins that work for us? That sounds like a plot thread that'll work.
We do. His name is Bobby.
That is true, but we're a court of law, Ben. We're justice. We don't have assassins. We certainly wouldn't advertise it if we did.
I'm working it into my next case. Andrea, I'll have you on.
All right.
And so, repeat the name of the podcast for people who maybe
the Cinemania Society.
Cinemania Society. I
love it.
I like that.
We're a secret society that judges films that could.
You're not doing a great job of secret, and
that's part of the reason we're on the hit list. We're supposed to be keeping it a secret, but we feel the obligation to broadcast to the world so people can be protected.
You've been Illuminati.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know we're also in works getting a few of your buddies from that show. They're going to come on as well.
Yeah, I heard.
Your
great underlings, I think you described them as.
Yes, Andrea is the host of the show,
host,
as I am the host of Reels of Justice. You see.
Right.
Well, I am a professor. I like to think of myself as a rung above.
Wait, why didn't you tell us doctor then earlier? You could have been doctor this whole time. Doctor.
Well, it's a little unclear what I'm a professor of.
Okay.
You're a professor of uncertainty.
Knowledge arts.
Knowledge arts.
Exactly. No one's going to question that. Now, we always ask for recommendations from our guests for movies that you think people should see. So, Andrea, what is a movie that people should see?
Oh, we just passed Halloween, but Renfield is really
long
good.
Time ago, though.
This is actually December or January.
Yeah, it's like December or January now, right, Ryan? Because it's so cold outside. Ooh, it's shivering over here. Ooh, it's so cold. Because it's December, Ryan.
Yeah.
Go on.
Nicholas Hoult does a fabulous job. And if you just want to see it because of Nicolas Cage playing Dracula, then definitely go see it. If you're not a huge fan of gore, still go see it. Because it's just so funny and clever that I think you'll be able to get over it.
Yeah, I have a friend. I have a very stupid friend who didn't like this movie, and he told me not to see it, so I didn't. And then I finally said, "Screw him!" and I watched it over Halloween, which was a long time ago, Andrea, a couple months. Yes. And I loved it. It was actually my favorite Dracula movie of the year, and there are a few. Because we're also with like Voyage of the Demeter, Last Voyage of the Demeter, and The Invitation. There's been kind of a lot of Dracula stuff spawning up.
Wait,
I was surprised how much Awkwafina.
Those are both specifically Dracula, yes.
Oh, okay.
Awkwafina was great, and I don't always like her and stuff, but she works in the tone of this really well.
Yeah, it worked really well.
And if you watch the trailer and you like the trailer, that's the movie. I mean, that is what you get. That my very stupid friend said Nicolas Cage wasn't in it enough, and he's in it exactly as much as you'd expect Dracula to be in a movie called Renfield. Renfield is the main character. Go in expecting that. Dracula comes in, he's the antagonist.
Yeah.
But excellent recommendation. Now, I don't get to do it later, but no, good call. Schlenzo, what have you got for us?
All right. Well, like I said, maybe when I said this court has a soft spot for M. Night Shyamalan, maybe I just meant me. So I actually recommend it. Now, I know you love him too, Maynard. It's all good. So, believe it or not, in 2015, M. Night Shyamalan took a shot at a found footage movie called The Visit, and which is very funny because I found this movie because my daughter wants to watch horror movies all the time. I want to find ones that are appropriate, and this one came up as like an appropriate PG-13 one. and I knew nothing about it. And so when I followed through the click, it's like directed by M. Night Shyamalan. I was like, a Shyamalan movie I've never heard of? What? So anyway,
what is comeback, wasn't it?
Yeah, a little bit. And what was interesting
he's
about
back from the gutter, and he's brought something with him.
No, but it was really cool because again, it is a found footage aesthetic, even though it's still really well shot. You know, it's like it's clearly not shot with like handy cams. They're using like real cameras and just making it look like found footage angles.
Well, don't be so sure. He used a handy cam in Signs for that Brazil alien thing. That's an actual camcorder they used. So
yeah, but this
not
one
beyond that.
No, I'm not saying he's not.
Great equipment in the movie.
Yes, thank you. That's my point.
And Ryan says it's got to be real.
I know. Well, I actually ran this recommendation by Ryan before. I'm like, Ryan, do you like this movie? And he kind of did. But anyway, so the brass tacks of it, it's about two kids that are going to visit their estranged grandparents for the first time. There's a lot of contrivances to make this work and for the twist to work, even though it's pretty obvious. You're going to figure it out. It's really not about the twist in this one. It's just more about the feeling of dread. There's something about movies where kids like are in danger and they don't have a way out that is really scary to me. Ever since I was a kid, movies like The Witches, you know, where they get turned into mice, and even The Simpsons Nightmare Cafeteria with the Marge doesn't believe the kids are going to get eaten if they go back to school. There's just something about kids being in danger and having no way out that always really bugged me, and this film captures that really, really well. So it's a pretty good movie. It's a pretty disturbing movie, and it's M. Night kind of doing something different, but he does it really well. So it was very satisfying to watch.
Kid gets a diaper in the face.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot more scatological horror than I'm comfortable with because my comfort level is anything greater than 0. I am uncomfortable. So this Human Centipede, Sallow, no thank you.
I had a T-shirt for that I never wore that I got like when I saw it in the theater, and I saved it in my closet forever, and then I threw it away this last move. You could have had it, Schlender, if you just voiced your love for it sooner.
I can't fit into a woman's medium, but thank you, Ben.
Oh man, all the points to Gryffindor on that one. Ryan, what have you got for us?
My recommendation this week is less a film than a comprehensive visual essay told from multiple perspectives. Alexander Philippe's Lynch Oz from 2022. It seeks to ruminate on the nature of inspiration and the large canon of references that cinema presents, analyzing the oeuvre of David Lynch as it connects to The Wizard of Oz and countless other masterpieces. Lynch himself spoke once briefly about the film, which clearly inspired at least Wild at Heart. And here you get to expand on it for about 100 minutes, as told by filmmakers like John Waters, Karen Kusama, and David Lowery. It's like a more credible yet slightly less entertaining version of Room 37. But if you're a Lynch obsessive like me, it's compulsively watchable. Lynch Oz is currently streaming exclusively on the Criterion Channel.
Now, Andrew has the Cinemaniacs. Have they gotten into Lynch?
There's a bit of dispute right now what we're calling ourselves since the Brethren accepted women as of last year.
Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. We're a little, we're not united on the term. Some people prefer Sinquisitors. Other people prefer profligators, or
I like the first one more, I think.
I like Sinquisitors or Cinemaniacs. Those are both good.
So, but as to the question,
if they're suffering from cinemania, like the show says, then they're Cinemaniacs. I don't care what they say.
Yeah.
Lynch, we haven't yet. We started off more with the Lovecraftian inspired films.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that makes sense.
Ventured
Gordon?
a little beyond that.
Stuart Gordon.
Stuart Gordon.
Right.
Yeah. Yep. But like From Beyond, Reanimator,
Castle Freak.
Have we ever recommended The Mist? I mean, that's a pretty.
I think
good,
so.
That's Stephen King and Lovecraftian. That's
probably, but you already went. You don't get to go again.
Yeah.
I'll go. My recommendation this week is probably my favorite Shyamalan movie.
Here we go.
Not the best one, mind you. No, Andrea, not the best one, but still possibly my favorite. 2002 Signs.
Yes.
A rural Pennsylvania family must look to each other to survive an invasion from beyond the stars.
Ooh.
At the time of its release, I was one of those devout Shyamalaniacs who thought, I want to tell you, Andrea, I thought of Shyamalaniacs this afternoon and wrote it out, completely not knowing that you guys were Cinemaniacs. So that is intellectually distinct.
It's like you have a purpose.
Who thought M. Night was the second coming of Hitchcock. And based on this film, he seemed to believe it too, apparently forcing the cast to watch The Birds several times during production. And while this is where the public faith in Shyamalan first wavers, I think we can all agree, especially in hindsight to what he's made lately, Signs is pretty great. The alien sequences are riddled with suspense. The visuals are lush and gorgeous, especially all the crop circle backdrops, which Shyamalan insisted be authentic. Mel Gibson seems to have completely ignored all of M. Night's direction, to his credit, I might add. Sadly, I can't say the same for poor Joaquin Phoenix, whose performance certainly suffers from the Shyamalan curse here. However, I adore James Newton Howard's Hitchcockian score, especially the Psycho-esque title sequence. And on a personal note, the DVD menu with the baby monitor continually loops through my subconscious mind on a daily basis. Signs is currently streaming all sorts of places. You won't have any trouble finding it. True story. Big Ben, you going to send us on home?
Man, I love Signs. Oh, that's a great
I do
one.
love Signs. Made our friend cry in the theater. It's great.
It did?
Yeah. I'm not
My
saying
recommendation doesn't have much. Okay.
Big
Go
Ben.
Are you finished? Are you finished?
Ben, are you ready?
Baby monitor? Any more about the baby monitor?
It was
Right.
Ben who cried in the theater, wasn't it?
My recommendation doesn't have much to do with Lady in the Water, other than it's a fantasy that centers around a magical young woman. It's Studio Ghibli's The Tale of Princess Kaguya. Miyazaki and Ghibli are almost synonymous, but the studio has managed to put out a few interesting hits without his direction, one of which is this one, based on a Japanese folktale. It centers around an old couple who adopt a tiny girl that they find in a bamboo shoot, who mystically grows into a full-sized woman when the couple also discovers riches and gold along with her. The kinfolk said, "Jed, move away from there," said the capital's the place you ought to be, so they loaded up their cart and they moved to Kyoto or Edo. They never say which one it is, but it's the capital. Regardless, the girl is raised as a princess and grows to be more and more beautiful and attracts many suitors. There are two things I love most about this film. One is the artwork, which is charcoal drawings filled in with watercolor. It's so unique and expressive and beautiful. I still can't believe that people choose computer animated imagery again and again when this is still an option. And two is the themes of expectations that society places upon you, how you should behave, and what is the correct path to happiness and fulfillment. As Kaguya moves further away from that original bamboo grove from which she was found and finds herself under pressure to please her adopted parents and pick a suitor, none of which who interest her. It all works up to a pretty heart-wrenching conclusion that I won't spoil for you.
Is this a new one? What year was this?
2016?
Oh, so it's a little more recent.
Newer, but it's not new.
Andrea, has the Cinemania Society gotten into Studio Ghibli too?
Ooh, you should.
No, but we did do Angel's Egg.
Go on.
I don't know what that is. What is that?
I can't pronounce the director's name.
Sure, that's okay.
But it's like 40 minutes, which is probably as long as it needed to be to get a release in the movie theaters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
With not very much dialogue and very meaningful and, but obscure.
And it was animated as well.
Hand drawn.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
The best kind.
Was it Japanese? Yeah, the
Believe
foot
so.
drawn animation I don't care for. No.
Miyazaki said if you're doing an animated movie, do it all by hand. Even if you're using a computer, do it by hand. I don't know if he understood what computers were when he said that, but
well, he means like draw it like on.
No,
he means draw it on the screen like with those tablets. Yeah, it's
that's what I figured.
You have to use your hand to type on keyboards or operate a mouse. I mean, generally. So you're still using your hands.
Lady in the Water would make a great cartoon. If this movie would have been so much better animated, I'm going to throw that out there. This would have been a great cartoon movie.
You should have that Irish Ghibli.
Oh, they'd crush it. Yeah. Ben, what is the Song of the Sea People? Ryan, help us out.
I have no idea what the company name is.
Yeah, I don't either, but
Irish Ghibli.
We'll
Irish
edit this
Ghibli,
out.
yeah.
We need to see.
No, we are keeping all of Irish Ghibli in here, Ben. Why? What's wrong with Irish
By the way,
Ghibli?
the mist is up for grabs. So
I guess Ben doesn't want to go ahead and talk anymore about Irish Ghibli, so I guess we're all out of show.
I want to sound knowledgeable. I know what all the
Why?
studios are.
What? That's not what people have come to expect from us.
Yeah, they like it when we're extemporaneous. Come on.
Yeah, we shoot from the hip. You know?
Pew pew.
Exactly. We follow the blind squirrel method of truth. But we're all out of show. We want to thank our guest, Andrea Palladino, for joining us. Thank you so much, Andrea.
Thanks for having me.
We're going to have you back. We're going to make you defend something not as bad. And
I'm so sorry. It was my idea, too. I feel terrible.
No, it's fine.
And we hope everyone else will join us as well as the reels of justice keep turning.
Count it.
Scrunt.
Oh, God.
Narf.
Please follow us on Twitter at Reels of Justice, Instagram Reels of Justice, and Facebook.com/Reels of Justice.